Hey guys! Today I'm reviewing Moon's case study for spot work. She asked specifically for this case study and she would like to receive feedback on how effectively she conveyed the process with clear reasoning and what she had done and learned and how she can improve the visual presentation for clarity. So let's take a look at overall. I'm just going to go through it real quick and then I'm going to collect my thoughts and then go through it section by section. In the top, we have a sample of the product, spot work, what spot work is, and then down here we have some overview, some problem hypothesis, and some details. So the overview is spot work is a gig work job based in Toronto, Canada, and it pretty much they provide flexible gig jobs with instant payments. The problem, so spot work is expanding to US and now plans to add W-2 jobs on to attract more job seekers. So they want to understand more about the UX tax system and the competitors, and they also aim to incorporate the W-2 1099 onboarding onto their apps, which will require job seekers to fill out like documents, background checks, and a little bit more like personal and security, secure type of information. So their hypothesis they came up with was creating clear guidance that's easy to follow on the onboarding process, and providing education can increase user engagement and completing their information forms to move on to the next steps. Okay. So this is a quick overview of the process. You can see she did a 5-day sprint. She did some research to start out the project. So the first thing was competitor analysis, which was one of the main, one of the goals they had. They want to understand the competitors, and they looked at 4 or probably more competitors. Looked at all of their onboarding. It looks like, and then these are some of the high level. So then we have a big how might we problem, and then this goes to show some of the solutions that they came up for the problems, some user flows, and then some ideation sketches. And then they put together a low fidelity prototype, which they tested. And then based on the findings, they made some iterations. And this is kind of like the final prototype. Okay, I think overall structure-wise and process-wise is very easy to follow. It's very straightforward. I think some of like the visual hierarchy that's happening makes it easier. It makes it really easy to follow through, right, with the titles, low fidelity. So yeah, let me look through a little bit more details, collect my thoughts, and then come back. Overall, I think it's very easy to follow. I don't think it's super overwhelming. There's, you clearly make a distinction between like the titles, the headers, the body, and the copies. Usage of putting like bounding boxes, like how you separate the informations with the boxes, and the way you just put everything together visual hierarchy wise. I think it's pretty easy to follow overall. Like even if you didn't put like this little process, I could see like, okay, she did some research, she did some ideation, some sprint, and then they tested it and then they made iteration. Like it's super easy to follow. I like the font. I like the color. It's not too much in the eye. It's very clean. It's very, very, very easy to digest. There's something about like the way you did these that it's very interesting, because I'm all for images being able to be clicked on for like details if they want and all that fun stuff, and like showing a lot of like screens and all that stuff is like overwhelming. But the way you made it here, it's like super small, you can't click into it, so it's less about each screen, it's more about showing how much effort you guys put into like the competitive analysis, and you guys did a pretty robust analysis on them. And I think it's really cool the way you laid it out. Like even here, it's a big chart, and usually the problem with any user flow is that it's way too small to even read, or it's way too big and you have to scroll several times to get through the map. The way you have it here, and I mean, granted, I don't know how it looks like on a small monitor. Let me check. Yeah, even on a small monitor, it's fairly legible. It's a little bit more blurry. I'm on a 5K, so I'm cheating, but yeah, no, I like the way, I like the size. I think it's clear. I love like this red box that you highlighted for specific like flows. It's just easy to follow. It's really easy to look at. Hand sketches, everyone loves hand sketches. I mean, that's what honestly everyone I spoke to, including like recruiters and hiring managers, love seeing hand sketches because it really shows like I guess like the backstage, is that what you call it? But yes, it's like, going to like the backstage of a concert and seeing like things are happening in the back end. So that's pretty cool. And then all your images are super clear, super crispy. So yeah, it's awesome. Love this. I It's just like a quick chart, but it shows like, all right, well, you understand that there's, major changes that's worth making, and some of the minors are like, is it worth making? Do we just let it slide? It's like all of that's kind of shown within this chart, so it's really cool. This part right here, I love the before and after. I can clearly see you tell us like what the change is, and I can clearly follow it from the before and the after. And I love some of the points that you made in the what did I learn section. So yeah, overall, I think it's very simple. The things that I wanted to point out are more like nitpicky, which is a great thing, right? Because now we're past like the big problems, and now we're going into like more of a nitpicky, more of a product type of, I guess, understanding, Mm, whatever the word is. But yeah, so the first thing I wanted to go through is some visual things to clean up a little bit. I'm gonna go through like start from the top and kind of go through what I observed. So this part right here, I love that it's almost color coded. It makes it easy to follow. I think what would make this even cleaner is a couple of things. One is all of these boxes are different sizes. If they're all the same size, and especially the bottom, like if they all line up the same and they're all the same width, and then these little icons are center aligned to them or left aligned to each and every single one of them, I think would clean up this section a lot more visually. Another thing that I noticed was some sections are great, like here, everything is lined up, everything's great, everything's boxed out. But then there's some sections where it's a little bit hard to follow because the alignment is very back and forth. So this is a good example of what I mean. So we have the left. I mean, we're almost like throughout the entire case study, we're kind of trained that this is, the left, this is the margin. And then it goes in dramatically for the title, and then it goes out, then it goes in, stays in, kind of goes out, and goes out a lot more. But this right here isn't lined up to this, nor is it lined up to that. It's this new type of margin. It goes in and out again, and that makes it a little bit hard to read. So if this section right here does it a little bit better, still I think like there's a little bit of improvement that can be made. Like here goes in, but kind of it's more consistent. Like there's this the left, and then there's kind of like this really big like major margin. Things are kind of going in and out a little bit, like all of that could be cleaned up, but at least there's this one big block versus here. So a couple of things I would do to clean it up, like for example here, I would left align the titles. The education goes here. So now my eyes see, day one, ideate, and then it goes based on W, and then I see education, and then everything here now gets the same alignment. Same thing here, right? Left aligning education flow, and then creating this like indenting margins, I think works when you're trying to separate those informations, but the indented margins should all be consistent. Like right here, even this margin right here is very different from here, as you can see with the mouse. So if you can make that all of that consistent, like lining that to the left, title to the left, aligning that to the left. I think all of that will clean it up versus center aligning everything. The thing about center alignment is that it works for, some things, like, it works for here. It's a very small box. It's a small set of things. But if you're going for a larger amount of details and information, center aligned is very difficult for the eyes to follow, especially when our eye is trained already to go from the left. Another thing is, so I know this is a low fidelity prototype. You wrote low fidelity prototype, and visually, it's not the best. Obviously, it's a prototype, so no, we're not going to nitpick, spacings in between here, like spacings in between there, all that fun stuff. But because there is this what is like a gradient background, plus like this blue that's used, plus this gradient, it kind of feels like a final product, which is not a good thing because the design itself is very rough. It's a very rough design, obviously, because it's meant to be rough. But because of things like the gradient, it makes it feel finished. So I would, and again, this is very nitpicky. I wouldn't waste. Is this? I think something that you have to figure out on your end is like, is that worth the time putting in to go back and fixing and uploading all the screens? That's totally up to you. Definitely not a priority. Absolutely not a priority, actually. But I just wanted to point it out while I have the opportunity to. So if all of these are grayscaled, it'll be a lot more clear to those who are, quickly looking through it and not reading that it's like a low fidelity prototype, especially when there's a prototype with a gradient. Then they might judge the design and the spacing and all of the little details, right? They might judge the UI of it. But if you make it gray, it will clearly communicate like, no, this is a fidelity. Don't nitpick at it. Move on, right? So that's that. And I like the idea of a clickable prototype, but it's not working. So just a FYI. Okay, so that's kind of more of a visual nitpicking. There are a couple of I guess, questions I had in terms of the product itself and how it was researched and how it was created. I think the biggest thing that I'm still confused in is the problem that you're trying to solve. So what I mean by that is, okay, I know that Spotwork is releasing to the US and they want to add W2 and the 1099 into their onboarding process within like native to their app. And they're trying to tap into the US market, which has its own, thing and all that fun stuff going on. All right. So I know that's the task. But I'm confused what is the problem that you're trying to solve, because I see inconsistencies throughout. So for example, in the hypothesis, I'm reading that, okay, you create a clear guidance and that is easy to follow on the onboarding process, and providing educations can increase users' engagement in completing their information. So this right here tells me that the problem you're trying to solve is engagement. So that either stems from there has been an issue of lack of engagement, or a big drop-off point where now they're at the step of filling out their forms and there's a lot of drop-off points. So this is what this sentence is telling me. And so this makes me a little bit confused, because I'm like, well, isn't this product new? There is no product for the US market. So maybe what the problem they're trying to solve is in the Canada version, in the Canada product, they do see a huge drop-off when it comes to getting the users to fill out their 1099 during the onboarding process. So that's what this little blurb tells me. But then this problem sentence right here, statement probably here, tells me something else. This is telling me that they're creating a new product, and this doesn't really tell me the problems that they want to solve through it. It's just telling me that it's just, this is the task of what was given to you guys. And then here I see that a couple of the problems that you guys observed during the competitor analysis is, it's, a lot of the competitors are, their process is time consuming, it's unclear, and it's, what is it? Users cannot see jobs before. So now this is solving for, not that it's solving for, but this is pointing out a different problem than user engagement. This is pointing out a problem within the onboarding process. Like the flow of it is just not good. It's confusing. It's unclear. It's just way too long. So that is a different problem to be solving for. And then I see here, it says, how might we provide an easy to follow app to help workers to sign up and complete the W-2 1099 onboarding process? So now this again confuses me, because this is kind of ties in this and like your hypothesis, where it's talking about how to help workers to sign up and complete the 1099. Again, like, is that solving for a drop-off rate on the onboarding process? Is it like, where did you guys know that completion of the W-2 1099 is a problem? I think that's where I'm trying to get to. I don't see anywhere where that problem was derived from. Now it could be from like a secondary, I don't know, research where you found out that, a lot of the problems that these guys are having, and including maybe Spotworks Canada, is the hardest part about the onboarding process is for them to fill out the 1099 or the W-2, and then they're having issues, like all of them are having issues getting that engagement. Then I understand why that is a problem that you guys are solving for. But I don't see anything like that. And then also another thing that confused me was, so these are all focused on the onboarding, but then when I get to this part, now I'm seeing that you guys are not just creating an onboarding, but you guys are creating the whole app. So like the managing like your jobs, the ability to search for jobs, all that fun stuff. So then where is the research for these? So that I had a question of, like, there must have been something where it could be a hypothesis, it could be based on Spotworks Canada, it could be based on competitive analysis, why you guys decided to tackle these on. That goes into my other like question, but for now I'm gonna wrap up like the problem statement. So yeah, I'm a little bit unclear what is the problems that you guys are solving for. If it is just to create a easy to follow onboarding process, seamless, whatever you want to call all the UX buzzword, intuitive, seamless, user friendly, blah 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 blah, onboarding process, that's very 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 different from getting them to increasing the engagement or getting them to complete the W-2 1099. It is a very different problem that you guys are solving. Of course, when you are trying to create a seamless onboarding, the goal is for them to complete it. But based on this sentence and up here, it is sounding like increasing users engagement is the problem that you guys are solving for, which is not what I'm getting from any of these. So yeah, that's I hope all of that makes sense. And the reason why I'm nitpicking on that is one of the problems that I had when making a case study for my IDP project. And for those who are not familiar with Springboard's curriculum, IDPs are like a short internships that they set us up with at the end of the curriculum. And so Moon actually worked with like Spotwork, like a real company, and two of the designers from Springboard, and worked on this project, and submitted to them, they presented to them, and worked with them. And it's great, and that is a great way to get some experience. But the reason why it makes it hard to make it into case study is because it's a very small project. It was very short, it's very rushed, right? We're trying to get some like research sprint in and prototypes in within like 4 weeks. I mean, that's crazy amount of work for a very short time. And so what happens is that, at least this is something on my side, is what happened to my project, and what I see from a lot of other projects, is that it leaves a lot of room for holes and gaps, and something that's really important to all UX projects, which is the why behind things and the problem that we're solving for. And it comes from the lack of time that we have to actually like think about the project, also the lack of understanding and experience as a UX designer. And like some of the things that I can pick up from like portfolios now, I wouldn't have been able to pick it up when before I started my role as a UX designer. These are some of the things I learned while being a UX designer and learning from senior designers. So it is totally okay to have things like, what I'm pointing out is like I don't understand the problem. It's completely fine. It's totally normal and almost expected from like a very short spurt, project like this, from a very inexperienced standpoint. And so the points that I am pointing out right now is not to say that this is all wrong. It's more so that I can point out things that other hiring managers might look at and might care to understand, to note, and some of the things that they might probe. And so, if I can help you kind of start digging a little bit deeper and maybe plugging in the holes a little bit, just on your end on the case study, and if that can help, then that's my main goal, right? But like, just keep in mind, like, the things that I'm pointing out isn't that it's bad. It's This was some of the issues that I had as a bootcamp graduate, trying to make a case study off of like a quick project, or like an ITP project. So with that said, yeah, I want to wrap up what I meant by like the problem statement. So I mean, obviously there's going to be a little bit of leeway, especially when you're applying to like junior designer roles. But still, these are the things that are problem statements, and really understanding what you are solving for and clearly defining the problem is such a big part of the part of being a UX designer. And that's why I'm like really nitpicking at it, right? So if you are, I don't know, at an interview and a hiring manager asks like, what is the problem that you are solving for? If you have like such a clear understanding of what the problem was, it would really make like a really it will leave a really good impression. So I think I don't know if I can help beyond this, because I don't know the projects. I don't know what went into it. So if you can go back and like really dig through your notes, dig deep, and really figure out like, okay, what were we trying to do? And to wrap up the problem statement, and the reason why I'm really nitpicking the problem is that is such a big part of being a successful UX designer, is to really understand like the core problem that you're trying to solve for, And if you don't quite have a grasp or understanding of like really what the problem is, then it's hard to build a good product, right? Because what are you can't come up with a solution for something you don't know it's a problem. And a problem statement, if a hiring manager asks you what you are solving for, and if you if you can like come up with a such a clear answer and clear understanding of what you're solving for, I think that will go a long way in an interview. And that's why I am nitpicking the problem statement here. I think as soon as like the problem statement is really clearly defined, I think in general the storytelling of this entire case study will get a lot better. So that is the problem statement. There are a couple of things that I wanted to point out, which is a couple of sections. It is confusing where to look first. I think this one right here is like more of a prime. I think one of the actually only sections that I had a problem with. So this is easy research, learn from competitors. Again, I'm gonna repeat it. I love it. It's just the visual hierarchy is awesome. I love the slight, navy font. Anyways, I'm gonna stop talking about that. It's awesome. And then this part is, it's fairly straightforward. You're just going a quick blurb on like why you did it and how you did it, which I think is perfect. Again, if cleaning this up with the UI. Now, this part is great. I got a little bit confused from here. So after the competitor, so in my mind, I went, okay, here's the how, here's the why, here's the what, here's the why, here's the how, here is the what. And then now I'm going to be reading about the insights given, right? So that's my mind. So I already know that this part is the insights and what you guys derived from the competitive analysis. But because there is a large paragraph, a really big, bold title, and two things with illustrations on it, and bulletin, and this part is boxed in, I don't quite understand what I need to look at first and what is more important. So when I looked in a little bit deeper, it seems like some of these are pretty redundant. Like you talk about not easy, long, any suitable jobs. And so these are all listed here. So I'm kind of confused why it's in two different spots, like what you're trying to accomplish with this paragraph. And another thing that I wanted to point out is these right here. So illustration, big blue font means that these are the two biggest problems that you guys found during the competitive analysis. Cool. But then it gets repeated in the bulletin. So time consuming and it takes too long. And then unclear and confusing. I guess you don't really say that here. But, oh yeah, unclear and confusing you say here too. So now it's like, are these different? Are these the same? If they're the same, why is it here again? Are these just as important as these? But they're not really because you're highlighting it. So yeah, my brain's a little confused. And then I'm confused, like, so then that makes me bring like, why is these highlighted and the rest of them not? Are these just like less important things? So I think just cleaning up this right here, I would even just, remove this whole thing because this is saying the same thing, but this is a lot more scannable. Something that I want to nitpick in this copy right here is you say that the problem, it discourages users. So discouraged is a behavior of a user. I'm confused where you derive that from because it doesn't seem like you spoke to any users, did any research from the user's point of view. So if you guys felt like when you guys downloaded the apps and went through the things, and your observation was it's clear, confusing, and time consuming, and therefore you assume that it will be discouraging to users, that's very different than stating the fact that the onboarding discourages users. So I don't see any data to back this behavior up. If you didn't do any like user research or anything like that, then I would consider reframing this as like, um, the problems that we observed when analyzing our competitors, or things like that, something like that, where it's less of, because if it's true that it's not about the users, it's things that you guys observed, then that needs to be said in the statements. Let's see. And another thing that I was curious about was where these guys came in. I'm mostly curious about the education. Um, so there's a big section here where first it educates them. I guess, mm, I guess they can fill out like the onboarding. But pretty much where my first question was, why did you guys choose to put in like an education or a learn page? Where did that come from? Because it's just not enough to tell from here that a lack of understanding. So if, let's say, you did some user interviews and blah blah blah, and a lot of them said like, oh, I actually don't know what the difference between like a W-2 and a 1099 is. Can I just, it's hard. So then that makes sense to make an education or learn page to be part of the product. But if everything that was observed was that the onboarding process of completing the W-2 form and the 1099 is difficult, then I am questioning, do you need an education learn page? Like, do you need to add in one more page that creates friction between the users and them filling out the 1099? Those are some more of like a product based questions that I had. I'm not saying go back and redesign the products or anything like that. Not at all. I'm asking. I'm just curious if something led to you guys including this education learn page, and if that's the case, I don't see. I don't see like that thinking or that thought process. In general, I think, and this is true to like 99% of the case studies that I've looked at, including my own, is that there was a big break point between the insights and then the futures that you guys were designing. So the thing about the case study, and it's such a great opportunity to communicate how your brain works, right? Who are you as like a designer? Do you, when you're designing the product, do you think about the user in mind? Do you think about the problem that you're solving for? Are you always going back to the insights and trying to figure out what you're solving for? All that fun stuff. And right here, there is always um, this break between. So like, all right, I can see that you guys are doing XYZ, but like, why? Why did you do? Why did you decide that this is a future? Why did you decide this is a future? And like connecting the dot for us, however that may look. So saying like, because the users were saying XYZ and blah, 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 we decided that an educational learn page would be the best solution for that problem, XYZ. Just really connecting the dot for us goes a very long way. And then the last thing that I wanted to point out here is I love the before and after. Only thing, I wished I knew the problem. Now, I know you listed the problem up here, and I do like this graph. I like this graph a lot, and I'm not saying to remove it. But I'm assuming that recruiters and hiring managers won't really read it. They're going to skim it. And also, like, they don't know this product as well as you do. Even though they're reading it, they don't quite, we're not digesting everything. We're not thinking through everything. So when I got to this part, I couldn't, like, I had to connect the dots between these and the solution. So if you can connect the dots for me, like this is, the findings, and this is a critical whatever finding, blah blah blah, user felt blah blah blah, user did blah blah, and the solution is we move the how to use section to the top of the page and you're showing before and after. So I think that could be helpful. Do I think that is the most important thing? No, I don't think so. I think it'll just make it easier for anybody to scan through and to read and to understand like why these were moved. But I think that's all the points that I wanted to make. I think overall, in such a short period, you've kind of touched upon like the important, like not important, but touch upon like the process where it's like starting from ideation and sketch, starting from research and then sketching it out and then creating a low fidelity and testing it. So yeah, it's really really such a short time. That's awesome. I don't think my team and I got even that far. So yeah, I hope this review makes sense. I'm gonna say this with every review and everything that I record, but take everything I say with a grain of salt, right? Everyone's gonna have an opinion what a good and a bad portfolio will be. There's not, well, okay, there's some things that are definitely always bad, and there's something that's definitely always good, but there's also really big gray area. It really depends heavily on like your style, who you are as a designer, the product itself, the project itself, the process that you took, in the story itself, right? So everything is going to look different, going to use different systems, going to use different layouts, and everyone's going to have opinions, right? So I would suggest, and the way I did it towards the end was I got feedback from 3 to 5 people, and I didn't touch anything until I finished that process of getting feedback. And then I went and I addressed the ones where everyone kind of brought up. So like whatever was the common thing, obviously that means that all of them agree that that's an issue. So it's kind of like doing a little usability testing on your thing, I guess you can say. But that will help out to pick what would be like the top priority thing to fix versus what is the little details that it's okay for now and you'll go back and fix it if it's worth the effort and if you have time. So yeah, I hope this was super helpful and I enjoyed reviewing this. So thank you for the opportunity for me to review it. Bye guys.